Imagine you get kicked out of the global economy, like totally blacklisted overnight. The world expected Russia's economy to completely collapse, a knockout in the first round. But that is not what happened, not even close. Instead, Russia launched one of the riskiest, most audacious economic experiments in modern history. This is more than a story about sanctions. It's a high-stakes survival playbook, and we're going to break it all down.
So that's the real question, isn't it? What do you do when the world just deletes your economy's phone number? When your credit cards stop working and the ATMs are all empty? Russia's answer wasn't some minor policy change. No, it was a full-blown economic rebellion. And the results? Well, they are wildly complicated.
So to get to the bottom of this, we're going to break it down into 4 parts. First, the initial economic shock and awe. Then we'll follow the money as it races to the east. After that, we dive into the shadowy world of crypto that's helping keep the lights on. And finally, we'll tally up the brutal cost of it all back home. Okay, first up, the siege. You have to understand, the goal wasn't just to punish Russia. The plan was to financially suffocate them. This was no slap on the wrist. This was an attempt to build a new economic iron curtain, basically overnight.
The strategy was brutally simple. Hit them right where it hurts, the wallet. They were booted from SWIFT, the system that's basically the text messaging service for all the world's banks moving trillions of dollars a day. Gone. $300 billion of their national savings, just frozen. Vanished. And the technology they need for everything from cars to missiles? Banned. This wasn't a siege, it was an economic amputation.
So, with the door to the west slammed shut and bolted, Russia didn't just knock on a different door. It sprinted east. It was like breaking up with Europe after a 30-year relationship and immediately jumping into a new, incredibly high-stakes partnership.
And at the very heart of this new strategy is China. This relationship became Russia's one and only economic lifeline. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. This is not a partnership of equals. Not even close. As we're about to see, one of them is very clearly the boss, and the other is just the supplier.
This chart tells you everything you need to know. Just look at what Russia sells to China. It's almost all cheap energy and raw materials. That's pretty much it. Russia has basically turned itself into China's giant discounted gas station. They're forced to sell their natural resources at bargain bin prices because, well, they have no other customers. And now look at what Russia gets in return. Everything they can't make for themselves. Cars, machinery, electronics. They are literally trading their oil and minerals for finished goods. This isn't a partnership. It is a dependency trap. Russia is effectively outsourcing its entire industrial future to Beijing. But China isn't their only bet. Russia is also desperately trying to build a sort of non-Western economic club, with India as a prime target. They're trying to cut the US dollar out of the equation completely, settling trades in their own currencies. It's like they're trying to build a brand new financial network where the old rules just don't apply.
Okay, now for strategy number 2, the crypto loophole. See, to get around the global banking police, Russia had to get creative. And that led to a really serious case of split personality when it comes to cryptocurrency. And here is that paradox in black and white. It's truly wild. For the average Russian at home, using crypto for payments is a huge no-no, practically illegal. But for the state and its allies trying to move money across borders, it's not just allowed, it's encouraged. It's their financial skeleton key for bypassing the entire Western banking system. And if you think this is some shady back-alley operation, think again. The head of their very own central bank basically came out and said that businesses have to get, flexible and enterprising. That's just code for get creative and find a workaround. This is a state-sanctioned plan admitted openly at the highest levels. Look, plenty of countries treat crypto as a taxable asset. That part isn't so strange. What is weird is a country telling its own citizens, don't you dare use this to buy coffee, while at the same time telling its biggest companies, please use this to move billions of dollars around the world. That double standard, that's the Russian model.
So Russia's survival plan seems to be working, kinda. But who's paying the price for it all? This brings us to the oldest choice in economics. Guns or butter? Do you feed your people or do you feed your army? Well, Russia isn't just picking guns, they're going all in. Get this. Nearly a tenth of the entire country's economic output, 8% of GDP, is now dedicated to just one thing, the war. That's like taking a massive fire hose of government money and spraying it directly at one part of the economy, and it's starting a huge inflationary fire everywhere else. And here's the really strange paradox. All this war spending is creating an economic boom, but it's not in Moscow or St. Petersburg.
The money is flooding into the country's poorest, most forgotten towns, which, coincidentally, are the exact places that build the tanks and provide the soldiers.
This map tells the whole story. See the dark green areas? Those are places where investment has literally doubled or more, and it's no accident they're also home to the country's biggest weapons factories. Decades of neglect are being erased by a tidal wave of cash with one single goal: build more war machines.
And that factory boom translates directly to cash in people's pockets. But this isn't from building cars. It's from military salaries and, very grimly, from massive government payouts to the families of soldiers who don't come home. There's a name for this: death economics. A twisted new reality where the most profitable career move is the war itself.
But this wartime boom is a vampire. It's sucking the life out of the rest of the economy. The civilian sector is being starved of money, of people, of everything. You have airlines literally cannibalizing their own planes for spare parts just to keep other planes flying. Think about that. Russia is sacrificing its economic future for its military present.
So, what are we really looking at here? Is this a masterclass in economic resilience, or is it the world's most expensive gamble? Russia has proven it can survive being cut off from the West, but it has done it by chaining its future to China and fueling a war economy that is eating itself from the inside out. The machine is running, for now. The only question is, for how long?